The Great American Bash has become arguably one of the most nostalgic premium live events in professional wrestling history, dating all the way back to the early 70s, to the early 60s, maybe 70s, back in the days of the old WCW, when the American Dream, the Hall of Famer Dusty Rhodes, created the premium live event and also created the structure that we now know as War Games. Over the years, the Great American Bash has given us moments that we will never forget, including the first ever War Games match all the way back in I believe, if I remember right, 1975, if I remember correctly. And let's also not forget The Undertaker doing what many people believe was impossible, and that was turning his back on his mentor, if you will, the late great Hall of Famer Paul Bearer, covering him in cement. And who would ever forget 2006, Chavo Guerrero costing Rey Mysterio the World Heavyweight title against King Booker. Over the years, the Great American Bash became a staple to the main roster. Now it's become a staple to NXT. And in today's video, I will be revealing my predictions for NXT, the Great American Bash. And this premium live event will basically kick off the entire weekend for the entire women's division. Not only do we have the NXT Women's North American title being defended this Saturday at the Bash, but we also have as well the most stacked card in WWE history with WWE Evolution, which I have already talked about my predictions in yesterday's video. So if you guys have not checked that out, I recommend you guys check it out. I can honestly say that Evolution this year will be one night no one will ever forget. So without any further ado, let's get down to business. Kicking things off is a grudge match between Javon Evans and Jasper Troy, the Young OG versus the LFG Season 1 winner. This is going to be very interesting because over the last month and a half or so, the last couple months, I'd say, Jasper Troy has really shocked the world in a way. He literally gave Yoshiki Inamura a run for his money, even in spite of the loss, and he even also gave Obafemi, the NXT champion, a run for his money, even in spite of the loss. So even with that, Jasper Troy has proven time and time again he is that dude. However, the same can be said for the young OG, as Javon Evans has proven why he deserves to be at the top of the card in NXT. And this Saturday, this match is going to be very interesting because it is basically the battle of David versus Goliath. And we all know, every time when it comes to WWE, every time we get a David versus Goliath match, 7 times out of 10, Goliath always wins. But every once in a while, David will pick up a shocking victory, shocking the entire WWE universe. This Saturday it's too tough to call because we knew that Jasper Troy was a massive fan favorite in the first season of WWE LFG, and the fact that he was able to win that season proves that he wanted that contract more than anything else. However, I don't think the same could be said for Tyra May Steele, as we had not seen much of her in the last, for the longest time. So one could argue that maybe she wasn't the right person to win the first season of LFG. Who knows? But as far as this match goes, this is one that is going to be a shock to the system, because imagine what happens if Jasper Troy wins. If Troy wins, he puts himself back in line for a shot at the NXT title. However, the same could be said for Javon Evans. If he wins, that puts him back in line for another opportunity at NXT Gold, which could be the NXT title, which is currently being held by Obafemi, the North American title currently being held by All Ego Ethan Page, the rivalry those two had last year, even also or even potentially the NXT Heritage Cup now being held by Stax. In fact, next week it is the end of an era, the end of the D'Angelo family. This was one that no one expected, but we also kind of saw it coming at the same time, which that's gonna be that one might be a bit of an interesting topic to talk about on the channel. It'll be interesting, but I don't know exactly when I'll be doing that video. Could be next week, who knows. But with that being said, they both have gotten one-ups over one another. Obviously last week on NXT, Jasper Troy attacked Javon Evans, sorry, 2 weeks ago, Jasper attacked Evans. Last week, Evans attacked Troy, and then last night on NXT, they were beating the holy hell out of each other. And it all will escalate this Saturday. One thing that I've always learned from Javon Evans is that he kind of reminds me of a combination. He kind of reminds me of a combination of Rey Mysterio and Jeff Hardy mixed together. Not only does he have the high flying capabilities, but he also has the agility. He's got the speed, and he even has the strength ability as well. So that right there could really become a detriment against Jasper Troy. But if I had to predict, I think it would have to be Javon Evans. I think just because of the fact that this is Troy's first PLE, and normally whenever you compete in your very first PLE, 7 times out of 10, you always lose. But there's an old saying that goes, just because you lost, it doesn't make you a loser. It just means you got to get better. And that's something that Jasper Troy that's what's in the back of Jasper's mind, is that if he loses, he's not a loser. He just has to get better in the ring. And I know that over time he will definitely become a champion. But for now my money is on Javon Evans. And speaking of all ego, Ethan Page will be defending cannot speak. Sorry, guys. Ethan Page will be defending the NXT North American title against Ricky Saints in a rematch from several weeks ago. This rivalry, Ethan Page had said it on commentary last night that this rivalry has gone on for years, from wrestling in bingo halls to high school gyms, to bigger arenas, if you will. But this is the first time that their rivalry has escalated onto WWE soil. So one could argue that Ethan Page, he could be taking Ricky Saints lightly, especially now that Ricky Saints made the match falls count anywhere, meaning anything goes, no countouts, no DQ, first man to gain pinfall or submission walks away as North American champion. So again, one could argue that Ethan Page might not be taking Ricky Saints all that seriously. But the same could not be said about Ricky Saints, because he's taking Ethan Page seriously, but it's more of Ethan Page and his pride, if you will. His pride is letting him not take Ricky seriously, and that right there is gonna be the big downfall for All Ego if he doesn't go all out against Ricky Saints. That being said, I think given the fact that Ethan Page has aligned himself with the Vanity Project from WWE Evolve, one could argue that the odds could very may well be against Saints. But Saints has as we saw last night on NXT in that Vanity Project Gauntlet match, one could argue that Ricky Saints, he could use that against all Ego, but the numbers game could also catch up to Saints as well. So in a way, it is a double-edged sword. My predictions, though, I think it has to be Ricky Saints, and the only reason why is because Ethan Page has been in NXT for a year now, and he's already done everything that he said he wanted to do. NXT champion, done. North American champion, done. There's nothing left for him to do in NXT, and I think now would be the perfect time for Ethan Page to get called up to the main roster, which is very possible. But think about this: Ethan Page could potentially be could potentially become the next Adam Cole, baby, and stay with NXT for a length period of time before potentially getting released, which is possible, but I don't think that's going to happen. But I think now would be the perfect time for All Ego to get called up, and imagine how much damage he could do on Raw or SmackDown. That right there would be very interesting. But I think if Ricky Saints loses, there's no telling when he will get another opportunity at the North American title, because that title was one championship that he had always wanted to win, and he did. But obviously, the last couple months have not been so kind to Ricky Saints. So my money is on the Revolution. Next up is a tag team match that will predict who could potentially win at Evolution between the team of Jordynne Grace and the in-ring debut of Blake Monroe against Fatal Influences Fallon Henley and the NXT Women's Champion JC Jane. This rivalry, this has been a very interesting rivalry, to say the very least. And the reason why I say that is because excuse me, is because over the last year or so, Jordynne Grace has been chasing after the NXT Women's title and has failed miserably. Both Monroe and Grace know that the NXT title, the NXT Women's title, excuse me, needs to be taken off the hands of JC Jane and Fatal Influence. So imagine what happens if Monroe and Grace win over Fatal Influence. That puts Grace in the driver's seat to potentially win said NXT Women's title. However, if Fatal Influence wins, then it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that JC Jane walks away as champion. I will say Jordan Grace has really stepped up her game over the last just this past year alone. Ever since announcing that she would be a part of the NXT roster, she has truly proven time and time again why she is the juggernaut and why fans call her Big Mommy Pump, because she or as the fans chanted last night on NXT, Muscle Mommy. Why? I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you. That's just what the fans believe. I don't know if that was a nickname that she was given years ago. I don't know what the hell. I don't know the story, unfortunately, but I will say that that Jordan Grace truly has become a major threat to the NXT Women's title. Excuse me. And imagine if Jordan wins. That Fatal Influence would not be happy about that. Excuse me. And it would take no more than about a week. And Fatal Influence would be back in the picture for the NXT Women's title. So my prediction for this match, it has to be Fatal Influence. As much as I would love to see Jordan Grace become NXT Women's Champion, or even Blake Monroe become champion, a loss to Jordan Grace and Blake Monroe would become very disastrous for JC Jane, and again, that could put her in line to potentially lose the NXT Women's title. But think about this. We've seen it before. Naomi has the Money in the Bank briefcase, which means potentially Naomi could cash in on the NXT Women's title at Evolution, which is possible considering that all the champions are going to be present. The Women's World Champion, Io Sky, the WWE Women's Champion, Tiffany Stratton, the NXT Women's Champion, JC Jane, the NXT Women's Tag Team Champions, Raquel Rodriguez and Roxanne Perez of the Judgment Day, and the Women's North American Champion, Sol Ruca, will all be present. Even Julia, the new Women's United States Champion, Becky Lynch, the Women's Intercontinental Champion, they're all going to be present at Evolution. So one could argue that Naomi could potentially cash in on that match for the NXT Women's title. And imagine if that were to be the case. It becomes a triple threat, and there's no telling who gets the victory. So for JC Jane, both nights is a must win. Speaking of Sol Ruca, she will be defending the Women's North American title against Izzy Dame, and this has been a very interesting rivalry between these two ladies, especially with Tatum Paxley getting involved. Obviously, we know that Tatum had lost a lot of her friends. She lost Lyra Valkyria. She's lost Gigi Dolan. She's lost Shotzi, who both of which they got released of their contract a couple months ago, which is a bit upsetting because they were a pretty dominant faction, I'd say, really dominant trio in my opinion. So for Tatum to join the Culling is very interesting, and this becomes a prelude to what we can expect with Evolution, because Izzy Dame has had her eyes on the NXT Women's North American title for a while, and she didn't have anyone. She had no one to back her up until now. And she has, obviously, Tatum Paxley. But over the last couple weeks, the last few weeks or so, we've seen Zarya kidnap, if you will, Tatum Paxley just for no reason whatsoever. And I think that is the key that they need for Sol Ruca to walk out still champion. And Sol wants to make history. She wants to become the only woman in WWE to hold the women's speed title, the women's North American title, and the women's tag team titles in a single run. Can it be done? Absolutely. But I think Izzy Dame, with how much momentum she's had over the last few weeks, I think her time's come. I think her time has come. I think the time has come for Izzy Dame to walk out NXT Women's North American Champion. And with Tatum Paxley in her corner, that could potentially become a very simple task. Which brings us to the main event, and this is going to be a big one. Big, meaty men slapping meat. That is what we are going to be getting this Saturday between Obafemi and Yoshiki Inamura for the NXT title. A few weeks ago, Yoshiki Inamura defeated Jasper Troy, where the winner would challenge Obafemi for the NXT title. This led to a final confrontation last night on NXT, and Yoshiki said that he was a man of honor. Briggs was like, you know what? I'm not. And a brawl broke down, and it just escalated really quickly. The respect is there. The respect between both Oba and Inamura is there. They both have a shit ton of respect for one another. But the fact that Briggs incited Obafemi last night, I think lit a fire not only inside the champion, but also inside the challenger as well, proving that Briggs has that much faith in Yoshiki Inamura to become NXT champion. And plus, Inamura said it best. He wants to become an NXT champion, but wants to make Josh Briggs TNA World Champion as well, which honestly I would be perfectly fine with. I've got no problems with Briggs becoming TNA champion. That would be pretty cool. However, with the contract signing that we'll be getting this Saturday at the Bash, which will be Trick Williams, the current champion, Joe Hendry, the former champion, and of course Mike Santana. That match will take place at Slammiversary in less than a few weeks, and one could argue that match is going to be a very history-making main event. So I've got no doubt in my mind that this match right here is going to change the direction of NXT for the next 5 years. And Obafemi, a lot of people believe that he's ready for the main roster and it's time for a brand new champion. And I 100% agree. I agree. I think given how much damage and Obafemi has done to NXT, one could argue that Obafemi could become a very dominant force, not on SmackDown, but on Monday Night Raw. Imagine the guys that he could be in the ring with: Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed, Sheamus, Rusev, who else? Otis, who unfortunately has been out with an injury. Not sure when he'll be back, but who knows? Seth Rollins, CM Punk, Sami Zayn, Karrion Kross. I mean, the possibilities are out there for Obafemi, and I think as much as I would love to see a new champion, and as much as I would love to see Obafemi go to the main roster, I don't think it's time. I think Oba walks away still champion. And on that note, that will do it for today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure you guys smash that thumbs up button. If you guys are new to the channel and you guys want more premium live event predictions in the future, then be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. And as always, make sure you guys are following me on all my social media. All of my ads will be in the description below, as will the info to my fan mail. It will also be in the description as well. And on that, this is your boy Nash, signing out.